Hello, I'm Simon Owens, and today we're talking about why Netflix still releases entire seasons of its TV shows all at once. There are a lot of things that Netflix is known for pioneering. First, it was DVDs by mail, then it practically invented the TV streaming market. But one of its most interesting innovations is the idea to release entire seasons of its TV shows all at once at the same exact time. For almost the entire history of television, TV shows came out on a weekly basis. You basically had to set your clock each week to tune in to new episodes of your favorite shows. And if you missed that episode, if you were away or you just forgot to tune in, you basically were out of luck. The next time you would get a chance to watch that episode is if it came on as a rerun, or by the late 90s or early 2000s, there was like a DVD version that came out several months later. By the time Netflix started creating its own shows, it had already witnessed the power of binge watching. Take Breaking Bad as an example. It didn't have a huge audience in its early seasons when it was just airing weekly on AMC. It wasn't until Netflix bought the rights and allowed binge watching of entire seasons at a time that it amassed this huge audience that was many times larger than what had been tuning in to AMC. So that by the time that the fourth and fifth season rolled around, the audience for Breaking Bad was just so much larger. And AMC itself attributes that huge audience to the Netflix binge watching effect. So when Netflix started to produce its own shows like House of Cards, it would just release the entire season all at once. Then it was up to the viewers to decide how fast they wanted to watch those episodes. Some people would just sit up all night and just binge watch the entire season. Others would just space it out like they would a normal TV show. For years, TV critics have sniped at Netflix for this. They claim that shows like Ted Lasso and The Mandalorian are able to dominate the cultural conversation for longer periods of time because they are released on weekly schedules. So basically, every time a new episode rolls around, there's a new round of conversation, of social media posts, of memes, and that just keeps them in the conversation longer and helps draw more and more viewers into that TV show or streaming service. According to this argument, Netflix shows, on the other hand, they're just flashes in the pan. Because they're just dropped all at once, a bunch of people will just binge watch them very quickly. Maybe there'll be a little bit of conversation on social media, but then they disappear. They're not part of the cultural conversation for a long period of time, and because of that, they're not able to draw in a lot of new viewers. But I don't think this argument holds up to any kind of scrutiny. A good example of why not is the show Squid Game. Even though Squid Game was released just like every other Netflix show, released all at once, the entire season, conversation about it has proliferated on social media for weeks. You basically can't open up Twitter or Instagram these days without seeing several references, several memes that refer back to Squid Game. What's amazing about Squid Game in particular is it's not only is it not an American show, it's not even in English, it's Korean. You have to watch it in subtitles. Netflix caused a Korean show to become part of the cultural lexicon. I can't think of any other example of any other major TV network, American TV network, that has managed to do such a thing. In fact, I'm much more impressed with a subtitled show dominating the cultural conversation, much more than when it's, a show that's based off of Star Wars. When The Mandalorian came out, it had a huge fan base of Star Wars fans already waiting for it. So I think it's much more impressive considering that Squid Game it was not based on any kind of pre-existing IP. It wasn't... people didn't even know that it existed before it actually came out, which makes it much more impressive what Netflix has been able to accomplish with it. I also think the argument against binge watching is flawed in other ways. For example, it assumes that everybody is discovering a show at the same exact time. Instead, people often discover shows in waves. So you have the initial people who find it and they'll tweet about it and share things about it. And then a new wave will discover it when Netflix recommends it. And it just creates this wave after wave of conversation that's just drawing new viewers into the show. Also, I think that weekly releases of TV shows are a great model as long as the show is really good. For instance, like with the HBO show Succession, I love that show so much that I'm going to make sure, whatever day it comes out each week, I'm going to be tuning in probably live or soon after it comes out. But most TV shows are mediocre. They're not worth appointment viewing. They're only worth watching as long as you can kind of set them on your own schedule and can just watch them when they're convenient to watch. For instance, like there's this old show called Elementary. I don't think it's on anymore. It was a network TV show, but all of its seasons are now on Hulu. And I don't think it's a great show. If it were on TV now, I wouldn't make it an appointment to watch it each week. But because it's just like something I can fire up when I'm bored and just need something to watch, I'm slowly making my way through each season. Most shows aren't a Ted Lasso, they're not a Mandalorian, they're not a Succession, and Netflix knows this. It knows that you're willing to lower your standards if you're able to binge a show. A lot of times you just watch TV because it's something to do. You're not necessarily always ready to watch some prestige TV show. It's just something to kind of cure boredom before you to go to bed or while you're, doing the elliptical or whatever. And one other point I want to make is that Netflix creates so much content that it doesn't need its TV shows to dominate conversation for weeks at a time. That's because every single week it has a new TV show or movie for you to talk about on social media. This week it might be Squid Game. Next week it might be Stranger Things. The week after that is Bridgerton. When you're operating on a level where you're spending, $15 billion a year on content and you're able to put out a new show, a new movie every week, you don't need to be like an HBO, which may have only, one new prestige show every 3 months. Netflix has made so many bets across so many genres and languages and niches that it can afford to, just throw a bunch of content out there and trust that some of it will really catch on within the popular conversation. No other streaming service can match that level of output. You look at like Apple TV, it really only has like a handful of TV shows for you to watch. And once you're done binging Ted Lasso, there's not a lot of other stuff you can load up. Okay, that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe on whatever channel you're watching this on, and definitely sign up for my newsletter. You can find it at simonowens.substack.com. Okay, I'll see you next week.